course, it was PMQs today. I've got to say, Rishi Sunak got a bit of a kicking, as to be expected. Let's listen to what Sir Keir Starmer had to say.
Is the Prime Minister proud to be bankrolled by someone using racist and misogynist language when he says the member for Hackney North and Stoke Newington makes you want to hate all black women?
Yes, of course. And Rishi Sunak was having none of that. Let's listen to his response.
The alleged comments were wrong, they were racist, and he has now, as I said, the comments were wrong, they were racist. He has rightly apologised for them, and that remorse should be accepted.
You just saw a clip there as well of Diane Abbott. She, a couple of times during PMQ, she kept rising up. She wanted to ask a question. She wasn't called by the Speaker to ask a question. She also was really not happy about that. You can see her, the kind of top right of your screen then. She's got that red jumper on. She's constantly trying to get up and get that Speaker's attention, but to no avail, I have to say. Right, let's start at the beginning. I've got to say as well, some further comments have been reported as well today, that this donor, Frank Hester, this is who we're talking about. This time it was in relation to, allegedly in relation to Indians and where they should travel on a train, etc. Where do we even begin with this?
So that latest part is news to me, but I wanted to talk about the things he's admitted he said, because that seems more straightforward and easy.
Right.
The thing for me is that number 10 got there in the end. The government got to the point that they should have reached, which is that what he said is racist and wrong. Yeah. The trouble is, as so often we wind up with a procedure story in Westminster, is that members of Parliament has been sent out to do the press without that position. Mm-hmm. So it feels like...
What, you want that like Mel Stride, when he came out in the morning yesterday and he said, yeah, it wasn't a nice thing to say, but it wasn't based on gender and it wasn't based on race.
So my point is that if you're going to make a concession, you should do it right at the beginning, rather than allowing other people to take on arguments for you that are unsustainable. Because it seems to me what he said was racist and wrong, and it's the right thing to do, therefore, is to say so straight away. As far as the money's concerned, this is remarkable to me. Some people in this world seem to think it's logical to say, that person's a racist, let's give him £10 million back. I would far rather take the money and use it for something else.
So do you think the Tory party should keep that money then?
No, I would use the money for something... I mean, the smart politics is to take the money and spend it on the Muslim War Memorial, or to spend it on anti-racism training, or to take the money and spend it on something that demonstrates that you in no way aligned with the views that have been described. I just don't see the merit in giving someone £10 million for making remarks that you agree are racist.
Well, the pushback to that would be, well, it shows that the Tory party, for all of its talk about, divisions and this and that and the other, the pushback would be, well, doesn't that send a message then that the Tory party, they put their money where their mouth is and they say, you know what, if you are that kind of person, literally, we don't want your involvement?
No, because my point would be, you don't use that money anymore for campaigning or for supporting candidates in elections. You use it for something that's demonstrably anti-racist.
Nigel, your thoughts on it all?
Well, I find myself in the unusual position of agreeing with every word that Alex has just said.
There you go.
Which is a bit strange. Yes, I mean, firstly, the money shouldn't be used for campaigning. Either give it back, I don't know what the grounds are for making a donation like that, or give it to charity. You could build 10 Muslim war memorials for £10 million.
Not the way we do infrastructure in the UK, you put it, Nigel.
That's the budget. I mean, the comments were racist. If Rishi Sunak really did have the integrity that he promised when he became Prime Minister, he would either give this money back or give it somewhere else, but he wouldn't keep it for the Tory party. But politics is cynical, that Hester's money makes up 20p in every pound of donations the Tory party have got. They can't afford to give it back, and so they're going to hang on to it. And it doesn't sound very good.
So that, on that one, it's really interesting. People aren't willing anymore to support political parties financially, generally, right? And specifically, they don't like giving to general funds. But I think if you go to donors and you say, you can see the trouble we're in, can you help us? Can you make good this bad money that we've got and give us your good, clean money? I think there are donors in this country who might be willing to support it.
That'd be fine.
Having had a moment to think about it, I've realised, I think I know what I would do with this money. I would demonstrate the point about the fact that every lefty who says we should pay more tax and so forth doesn't actually voluntarily make a payment, which you can. I would, if I were the Conservative Party, I would write a cheque for £10 million to HMRC.
I don't think you can do that with money like this. No, you can't give it to the government.
They cash it.
Well, it was a donation to the Tory party, and I presume there are a few strings attached to a donation. There's no reason why you couldn't give it to charity.
Conditions on donations, I don't think.
No reason why you couldn't give it to the charity. I think it would be wrong for the government to take it and then bug it into Treasury coffers.
Because there's a difference between the Conservative Party, a campaigning political organisation, and the government, which governs for all of us. And my point is, I think it would make a useful point to say this is not our party political money. We're not going to use this anymore. We're going to give it to the revenue. Yeah.
OK, well, I disagree that you can give it to the government, but there you go.
Well, I do have to make clear, of course, do all of the right boxes here. And I do have to say, of course, that lots of this stuff is alleged at the moment. Frank Hester, he has come out. He has apologised, of course. He said that actually he admits that he was rude and all the rest of it and shouldn't have said those kind of things. I do think it's quite interesting, though, the timing of this, because I do need to be clear with everyone. This information here, these conversations that were apparently private conversations that were had, these were about half a decade ago.
Yeah, but the reason I didn't mention that to start with is that nobody cares, right? This is obviously a political move, but it's been well done. It's a well-executed attack on the Conservative Party. And once that's been done to you, the right thing to do isn't... You can make that point as a subsidiary point, once you've conceded that these remarks were racist and wrong, as the Prime Minister has rightly done. But you can't put that up front, because in the end, politics is a dirty game. Whoever put this in their back pocket and waited for an election year for it made this attack rather well.
And it was only 5 years ago. I'm surprised he actually continues as a CEO of a major company. I can't think of many CEOs who would actually have survived if they'd made comments like that. If one of us made a comment on air like that, we wouldn't be on air again. I mean, the reaction to these things is phenomenal. Yeah. It seems to be that the Tories, as usual, get these things wrong in the first instance. They wouldn't call the remarks racism yesterday. Today they've come round to calling them racist. That's the right thing to do. But Alex is right. They should get their act together and do it immediately. Yeah,
and I've got to say, of course, this fella, he apparently did reach out to Diane Abbott a couple of times and has apologised or tried to apologise there. And he says he wants to make it clear that he regards racism as a poison, which has no place in public life. And he's certainly been put through the ring of this fella. I'm surprised that he's not said, do you know what, I'll take my money back, thank you very much, but who knows what will happen next. Anyway, what I found interesting as well in this is Harriet Harman. She was speaking about, let's just listen to her actually, about Diane Abbott.
I would be very sad if Diane Abbott were to leave Parliament not as a member of the Labour Party. I would like to see it resolved, and I hope it can be resolved in a way which has Diane Abbott back in the party.
So it's really interesting. I think it's quite... If the Labour Party had done what I thought was an obvious thing to do and put Diane Abbott, who, whatever you think of her, has been a symbol of cultural change in this country for the better in recent decades, if they put her in the Lords, as I thought merited, she's, I think, not the best possible MP she could be at this point in the cycle, but she would be a perfectly respectable and legitimate member of the House of Lords. They would have resolved this. But instead of putting her in the Lords, they took her. They questioned whether they should get reselected. She naturally fired up and said, "Right, I'm going to have a fight. I'm coming back. I'm going to fight again and again." And now they've wound up suspending her. It is. You've got to separate out the two issues. The fact that this guy was racist about her doesn't mean that she gets a clean slate and is forgiven anything she does. She was, in turn, guilty of voicing a particularly pernicious kind of racism, anti-Semitism, which meant that the Labour Party rightly suspended her. And I don't think what this guy said about her actually changes her case one bit.
Nigel?
I think she should be allowed back into the parliamentary party. I think she should stand as an MP. I think the same thing about Jeremy Corbyn. He should be allowed back in and stand as an MP.
Oh, Nigel.
The situation with Diane Abbott is that she made some clumsy remarks that seemed to be the beginning of a debate that was never continued because she had to withdraw those remarks, which she did, in fairness, immediately. Doesn't excuse them. They were on the surface anti-Semitic, but I think that if you look at it a bit more closely, she's now been suspended for some time. It was last year.
Yeah.
She should be allowed back.
The thing is, you've got to be able to in politics, I think you've got to be able to read the environment a bit. And it was obvious. I was making a bit of a concession to your point, really, about whether something's disproportionate. It was clear the leadership wanted to move on from the Corbyn regime, with which not just Corbyn, but Diane Abbott were indelibly associated.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they were looking for an excuse exactly, but the fact that Diane Abbott gets a bit less leeway than other people is obvious.
Yes, I mean, it was quite clear that Keir Starmer wanted both Diane Abbott and Jeremy Corbyn out.
Correct.
I think that the Labour Party is bigger than that, and it should be a broader church, which is why I'd like to see them back.
And do you think, just briefly, she should have been called today to ask a question or respond or whatever in PMQs?
Yes, I'm actually quite surprised the Speaker not calling her on the basis that everyone's talking about her. She's there in the chamber. She has something to say. I think MP should have heard from her.
I agree completely.
I certainly think the optics of that certainly weren't good, were they? And as I said, Diane Abbott was definitely not happy about not being called to speak during that session. Anyway, your thoughts, gbviews@gbnews.com is how you reach me. I want to bring you in on that.